LaTosha Brown is with us as well. LaTosha, I know you understand what Harris is trying to do, this new strategy, going to some of the more rural areas in Georgia, for example, where you're from. How much does this potentially help her campaign, instead of just going to the populated areas where Democrats are a majority?
No, I think it's a brilliant strategy. We saw that in the last campaign, that part of what brought about Georgia is that it wasn't just the metro Atlanta area for Biden, but he was able to shave off some of those votes in the county areas. That part of what we saw, and part of our strategy, and with the work that we're doing on the ground, that part of the strategy is really to be able to shave off votes, that we know this is going to be a close election. And so I think part of what's going to happen, I think the strategy to go in the rural areas, and both in Georgia, to go to rural areas in Pennsylvania, she's sending a message. She's sending a message that she cares about those voters in that area. I think she's sending a message that she understands that there's opportunity, that even if a county is red, if you can actually you can make that margin smaller, then that actually gives you an advantage as well. So I think that she's actually being aggressive at going at voters and saying that she wants to fight and earn the right for voters to vote for her.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty smart strategy indeed. Frank Luntz is with us. Frank Luntz is a pollster. What's your sense, Frank, of what's more effective with undecided voters, the kind of retail politicking or big breakout moments like this event that's coming up with Oprah?
And I would say that it's really neither. The key here is inflation, affordability, housing, healthcare, food and fuel. And that message, where they stand and what they say about it, matters more than everything else. Immigration is second, but it's a distant second. And if they don't get the message out, just because they show up doesn't mean anything if they're not heard. And if the coverage is all negative, and frankly, wherever Trump seems to be going, he brings negative coverage with him. When Harris goes somewhere, she brings positive coverage with her. And that, in the end, is going to make a difference. This is the opposite of 2016. In 2016, the Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton, brought a great deal of negative, or at least skeptical coverage. Harris is not doing that at all. And that's why she continues to gain a point or two in these key swing states.
Charlie Dent, you're a former Republican congressman from Pennsylvania. What do you make of Kamala Harris's focus on these two rural Trump strongholds in your state? What will it take for that strategy to wind up paying off?
Well, what Kamala Harris is trying to do, I think she's trying to pull actually a page out of Joe Biden's playbook. There are 67 counties in Pennsylvania. And if you look what happened from 2016 to 2020, Donald Trump underperformed in 66 out of those 67 counties, meaning that he did slightly worse in 66 of 67 counties, including counties he won by big margins. She's going to Luzerne County tonight. That's where Wilkes-Barre is. I believe she was just in Johnstown, Cambria County. She's going to lose in these places, but she's trying to cut the margins back. Donald Trump only performed marginally better in one county in 2020 than 2016. That was Philadelphia, believe it or not, even though he lost big. So Harris is trying to cut the margins down in these areas because Harris is going to lose the overwhelming number of counties in Pennsylvania. She'll win the big ones where the population is, but it's really tight right now. So she must absolutely be in these red areas to close the gap a little bit.
You know, Isaac, I'm curious. You heard Trump once again call far-right conspiracy theorist Laura Loomer today a supporter and a, quote, free spirit. A woman, even far-right people like Marjorie Taylor Greene simply say is way too extreme for the mainstream of the Republican Party. Why isn't Trump distancing himself from her?
Because this is what he does. I mean, Donald Trump often associates with people. You go back to about 2 years ago when he had dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, when after all the anti-Semitic stuff was coming out of Kanye West. He has people around him who are promoting these things. He enjoys having some of that around. He talks about it himself. He was the one who talked about this made-up story about immigrants eating dogs on the debate stage. And it sort of reminds me of that scene in The Hangover, the first Hangover movie, where they've got the Mercedes-Benz going down the road and the tiger wakes up in the back seat. Whatever the Trump campaign has tried to build here to keep things very professional and capable, they always have to deal with Donald Trump being Donald Trump and scratching at things in the way that he's going to.
Interesting. Frank Luntz, Loomer also is doubling down on her 9/11 skepticism. She did so once again today. How damaging is this association, do you believe, for Trump?
It's certainly not helpful when you're trying to win undecided voters. They're not ideological and they're not political. that they're judging a candidate's character traits, not character, but character traits and attributes. And this is not someone who is regarded as sensible, reasonable, and responsible. Trump should be surrounding himself with people who are in the mainstream, people who know about the key issues, have substance, and those who don't play with conspiracies, because he's got those voters already. You know, I think, Wolf, that Donald Trump's greatest opponent isn't Kamala Harris, and it's not Joe Biden. It's actually Donald Trump.
What he's doing, a lot of people agree with you on that. All right, guys, thanks very, very much, all of you. Coming up.